Hi, I'm Morgan from Motorcycle Cruiser, and if you've been following motorcycle trends at all lately, you're familiar with Scramblers. Scramblers are basically road bikes that have been reworked to be a little bit more dirt-oriented. This includes a high pipe, knobby tires, longer travel suspension, and stripping down all the unnecessary bits, as well as a little bit higher handlebars. So here we're looking at the BMW R Scrambler. This is a horizontally opposed two-cylinder 1200cc shaft-driven motorcycle. Starting price is 13 grand on this one. It is the heaviest and also the most expensive of the bikes that we're testing out today. Up next, we have the Moto Guzzi V7 Stornello. This is a limited edition motorcycle. This one's number 170 of 1,000. It's the only Scrambler that Moto Guzzi offers direct from the factory. The Scrambler is actually just a dealer kit that they sell. This is a 700cc V-twin shaft-driven Scrambler. Finally, we have Triumph's Street Scrambler. This is a 900cc parallel twin chain drive. This is 10.7 starting price, and it's really the quintessential modern Scrambler. Triumph started the game in the mid-2000s when they came out with their Bonneville Scrambler, and they've been really running with that ever since. We were hoping to get the Ducati out here for you guys, but that fell through. So we do have these three models. We're excited to get out on the road, pit them against each other, and see how they all stack up. The appeal of the Guzzi 700 to me was that it was the lightest weight in the class. It was a really simple classic bike in the sense that it still felt like a 40-year-old classic Scrambler. I really wasn't impressed with the power output or power delivery.
I did not like the transmission on that bike. I didn't like the fact that it's shaft driven.
The engine's adequate. It's not gonna blow your mind, but it's also not the slowest one out there.
The Guzzi handles fairly well on pavement. No complaints, the suspension is okay. It's nimble.
The lighter weight of the bike, it was nice and manageable. It dropped into turns nicely, and it was pretty easy to handle.
The overall suspension characteristics were not squishy, not too aggressive, just kind of right there in the middle. It felt really good.
The V7 Stornello Scrambler is a good bike for what it is, but really it's a collector. It's not a daily rider. If you want a bike to ride to commute to work every day and go hit the trails on the weekend, you're going to be looking at something with a little bit lower price point and a little bit more capability. The Stornello is great to look at, and it's style all day. It's classic Guzzi, but when it really comes down to brass tacks, it just doesn't quite pull.
The Triumph's 900cc engine, I think, is just the right amount of power for that motorcycle. I think it's good for off-road, and it's also good ripping through the corners and the twisties.
The engine has a great character. At no point was I hurting for power. At no point was it too much for me. It's just nice, universal, middle of the road. Whatever we threw at it seemed to take it well.
The suspension on the Triumph handled very well on the road. You're up high enough to where you can lean it in the canyons without any problem. It eats up the small bumps as well as the big bumps.
It ate the turns really well. I was able to get nice and low. Again, those tires on it are great, so I was confident throwing it into the turns at high speed on road. And then when we went to transition off-road, same thing. The damping worked really well. It wasn't too springy when we were on the more bumpy terrain.
Ergonomics are really comfortable for me. I don't fit on it like a glove like I do on the Guzzi. My legs just don't suck perfectly up against that tank like it does on the Guzzi, but still, overall, very comfortable.
I'm a taller guy, and hopping onto the 900, I wasn't fully sure how I was going to fit. It was surprisingly comfortable. That bench seat was easy to hop all around when you're scrambling on the thing.
The handlebar positioning is great, not too short, not too tall, just right for my 5'10" frame. Ergonomics were overall pleasant and comfortable. I was very stoked on the riding position of this bike.
The Triumph Street Scrambler is, in my opinion, the only one of these bikes that's buyable. It is a solid 5-day commuter that you can go out, hit trails, and still get scrambly on the weekends.
It's a very good looking motorcycle, and it pairs well with the performance engine. The BMW R Scrambler has a great motor for the highway and the road. You got a lot of power. It's kind of excessive for off-road.
Puts out great power. It has a good sound. it's just really hard to utilize in this body. By the time you find yourself really using the full 1200 cc's, you're getting into a lot of trouble because either you're spinning that knobby on pavement or you're just going way too fast for what the rest of the bike can handle off-road.
The suspension on the R nineT Scrambler is great on the road. Handling is great on the road.
On road, it rides pretty well, but the R9T in its standard stock form rides way better.
Off-road, the BMW is pretty useless, to be honest. It's just too heavy.
Rideability-wise, it's the last bike I would choose to take off-road. It doesn't handle well, it's bulky, it's not very agile, it doesn't lean very well.
It was rough riding this thing off-road. I really wanted to like it, but all in, it just didn't have what it took. By the time you start using that power, it's really scary because it just has too much weight to stop quickly, to control. So it's unwieldy when you take it off-road because of that. Honestly, ergonomically, I think the R9T was my favorite. It fit really well. It's really comfortable, it's really standard, it's right in the middle. You don't find yourself crawling around on it as much. You're much more fixed in one position than in the other bikes.
I was actually very pleased with how it felt. I was comfortable. I liked the foot peg positioning. I liked the handlebar positioning.
The BMW R9T Scrambler cut a lot of the road performance aspects of the R9T with ambitions of making this scrambler bike that it just didn't quite meet. So the trade-off really isn't there. They end up cutting the functionality but not gaining it back in other ways.
Man, that was awesome. Great day of riding. Obviously we got to put these bikes through their paces, but you know, like with any shootout, there can only be one kind of clear-cut winner. And I think we all are in agreement, and the shoe-in for that title is
Street
Triumph
Scrambler.
Street Scrambler.
Absolutely, for
Right?
sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, the R9T was just too heavy for off-road use for what we were throwing it at. The 700, while still a stronger bike, for the price point near 12 grand, it's too expensive.
Yeah, too expensive. I do like the way that I fit on the Moto Guzzi. It's with the mid controls and the tank cutouts, you kind of feel like your legs are getting holstered into that bike.
Yeah.
It just fits perfectly. But Triumph is also a very comfortable seating position, and the motor and transmission, everything. It just trumps the other two.
Yeah, I think it's pretty clear. The Triumph Street Scrambler is definitely our favorite of the three. It's been fun riding all of them though. I mean, to do what we get to do, like ride these off-road and through the twisties and whatnot, it's been a blast. But like I said, there can only be one winner. So
That's right.
Triumph Street Scrambler is the best.
Yeah.
So,
Totally.
kudos to you, Triumph. Nice work.
So what, rock, paper, scissors, so you gets to ride the Triumph on?
Okay, ready?
Ah, John wins.
I win.